Is that a verb, Skyped in?
Probably.
Well, it's Skype, yeah. It's Skype, yeah.
Are there any questions from last week?
Microsoft.
What did you talk about?
What did Nick talk about?
Be that way.
Yeah, Genesis 1:1, beginning, creative element.
Well, yeah, basically.
You actually went a step further because it talked about not only beginning creating Elohim, but beginning also created heaven and also created earth. And there's no mention of beginning ever creating hell itself. So hell is a subset of earth created out of human nature.
I see. Okay. Well. I don't know what Pastor had in mind, but I'll just tell you a little bit about
How about what you have in mind?
what I don't know what he had in mind for me. But I'll just tell you a little bit about some experiences we've had recently. And I'll start with the fact that when I left, meaning when I left work, there are some personal things that have happened to me, and I'm wondering if any of you have had any of the same kinds of experiences. Several things have happened. I only have so many nurses, and what happened was one of the nurses was supposed to leave because of a personal matter relating to one of her children having a child. You know, she was going to be with her, but that nurse ended up having a stroke the morning that she was supposed to leave. And then, additionally, one of my other nurses called out, got sick, and so that was the morning that I wasn't here and had to literally go into the facilities and work all weekend. All right, so I'm getting ready to leave town with all of that happening. And so we've tentatively put a plan in place for coverage and things like that. This is just one example of what, and I'm wondering if any of your lives are unfolding like this. And then when I got back, I walk in the door and another nurse they had suspected she had a heart attack, but thankfully she didn't. She had some pulmonary emboli in both of her lungs, so she's out. And then one of my other nurses resigned because she got another job, which is fine because, you know, we encourage people, but she's gotten a job which was more lucrative for her. And so these are the kinds of things I've been dealing with this past week, and not only that, but before I left. It's like things that have been going along just routinely are just getting out of kilter. And, you know, one of the things I asked myself the question was, well, what's going on? Why is this happening? And in the final analysis, what I came to is that it doesn't matter what goes on, it's how you choose to respond to what goes on. That's important. And so, after coming back on Monday and asking everybody, are you healthy? Are you healthy? Are you healthy? Are you healthy? I'm healthy. Stay healthy, stay healthy, stay healthy. One of the things that I determined is that folk looked at me and how I chose to respond to things to get their cue for how they were going to continue on, whether they were going to settle down or whether the madness was going to continue. And thankfully, things are settling down. We still don't have nurses, but we've got some in the wings, things like that. And so the object lesson, I think, for me, is that what I do it affects so many other people. And it's important the way that I choose to respond, and that I have a responsibility to respond in a certain way. And I think that's the object lesson for all of us, particularly now as we are going into this new age. It doesn't mean that things are not going to continue to happen. What it means is that we potentially have the power to interrupt what happens, or to prevent it from continuing to escalate and spiral, for lack of a better word, down, or spiral up, if you want to say. But we have that power. It doesn't mean that all is well right now with me, but I have to have that certainty that all is well with me. It doesn't mean that it looks like all is well with me, whether it's my personal or private life. I have to have that certainty that it is, though. Does that make sense? Does that resonate? Anybody else been? Yeah, Mark.
Why do you think it started from the beginning? I mean, maybe it was giving you the opportunity to show that, that the perseverance or or do it all, how to make it through it all for others, Maybe that's why it happened to you.
I think you have a point there. I think that right now, though, don't be surprised. And some of you have already had it happen in your lives. Don't be surprised if the stuff starts happening personally. Because it's the time for us to put our quote-unquote, for lack of a better word, money's where our mouths are. We've been saying that we believe whatever we believe. We've been saying we've been walking in a certain way. We've been saying we have, we're enlightened. And now we can't just say it anymore. We have to be it. And I think that there are going to be more and more opportunities for this. It doesn't mean going wrong, guys. It just means that it's our opportunity. It's like being in the. It's a different phase. At the other phase, Pastor carried along. Oh, it's going to be all right. Just give it to me. Well, now it's up to us. He's taught us, and it's not going to be enough to just give it to him anymore. We got to know that we know that we know that we can change things. Does that resonate? Yeah. It doesn't. You don't have to like it, Evelyn, but it doesn't resonate. I don't necessarily like it. It is what it is, and we are who we are. And if we are who we are, and we are who we are, we have to be that, if that makes any resonance anymore. I mean, it's like I'm talking in circles, but I believe you understand where I'm coming from. We had an opportunity to travel with it, thankfully, got back safely. But we went to Belize. There's some Mayan ruins there called Atunha. They're called something, water on the rock or something like that is the meaning of it. And there are some Mayan ruins all over, not only Mexico, but Central America. So they are not the only ones. But it only takes looking at one group to try to get in, to try to experience the awesomeness of whatever it was that these people were in contact with, knew about, were aware of, were conscious of. To say, how could they do that? How could they build that? One of the things that was impressive to me is one of these at Atunha that I thought was fairly significant because I'd never heard it before. These were grounds that were like football field size, or 3 football field sizes. And I'm looking for it while I talk to you. One of the things they said was that they found a Mayan priest in one of those.
Are you looking for the images?
Ruins, yes.
There's one.
Yes, that's an example of it. They found a Mayan priest in one of those. And there were about 13 different ruins in this area, 13 that had been uncovered. There were other mounds that had not been uncovered yet. But 13, and in one there were about 7, and in another, right beside it, were 5 more. But in this one, there was a Mayan priest, and he had been buried, and they found jade and things like that in the vault. And the thing about that is that jade is not indigenous to Belize, and so, and this was about 5 miles from the Caribbean Sea, and so they deduced that these people were a people of means, a people who traded with other people, things like that. But the thing about it is, there's that tomb. Then right across there, 3 football fields, 2 football fields, there's another one, and they found a woman buried in that one. I thought it was really interesting, and the layout was one here, and then there were other tombs around. But it was interesting. People were in tune with the kinds of energies, masculine and feminine energies, to do that. This fellow didn't even know what he realized he said to me, but it really struck a chord to me. Usually married, you find priests and people of means, but this woman was buried in one of them. So, and it's almost like when you walk through, you got this. You know, what I thought about was the covenant of Abraham. And they walk, the sacrifice walking through the center, the fire going through the center of those sacrifices. It's sort of the same feeling I got as we walked through there, knowing that these energy types were on both sides. But it felt, consoling isn't the right word. It felt,
Somebody interpret.
Comforting, speaking in tongues.
it felt like it was supporting everything that we're learning about balancing and of energies, that these folk were in tune to that, in a sense. So that was really surprising. And I don't know if any of the other ruins also have that as well. I would think that they would, if in fact they were connected to the same primary energy sources.
Well, I think they were. From what, Belize up to Nicaragua, there are like 6,000 cities, Mayan cities. So, and all of them were built primarily the same way. And the children set up the same way, whether it was in Belize or was it in Nicaragua, Venezuela.
Guatemala or Cozumel, all of them.
All of them, yeah.
Central America. The other thing about that is, Pastor, you still got that?
Yeah.
The other thing about that is that these steps are about 20 inches apart or so. I mean, it's hard for me to go up my 8. My husband tore up my 8-inch steps with 6 inches for me as I got older to make it easier. I'm going to be frank with you. Yeah. It's much easier. But even with the 8-inch steps, when you're young, you could bound up those steps. Some of you younger folks are still bound up them, but that's neither here nor there, or everywhere. But the point is, these folk were about 5 feet. 5 feet tall. And this is the standard. This was the standard for their steps. I'm wondering, how do they do that?
How many inches were they?
20 inches or so, maybe 22, like that. Each step. And you can see the people at the very top there. So we're not talking about 2 or 3 steps. They go up there every day, do that. What do they do and come back down? So that was amazing to me too. How do they build it? How do they go up and down it? Et cetera, et cetera. So there's some questions there that are unanswered, but cause you to wonder and say, like Arsenio Hall is, It's like Stonehenge.
How many steps are there?
I don't know, but it's a heap of lot. And these are smaller ruins. These are smaller ruins.
I would have, I'm thinking there might be some significance with the number of steps.
Oh, I don't know. But there are some ruins that are more.
Egypt, something like that.
Well, I would, it'd be interesting to have somebody, what are the common, in the Inca Maya and Aztec, what seem to be common core values? I think one of the things that's spectacular, and I wouldn't be surprised if other sort of more, what we would call native, grounded, traditional cultures had similar views, but they didn't have the engineering to build the way these people in, let's say, Egypt they built. But I wouldn't be surprised at all if other peoples had similar notions. Even if the burial, for example, was just a hole in the ground with certain things put in there with the body put in a certain position, you could have a man here and a woman there. Same understanding, but expressed a different way because it was using indigenous materials and they didn't have that engineering something. So I think our discussion, from what I understand, like Egypt, yes, I think there's very much mathematics in this. So you find distances or just the relationship between things are proportional in a certain way. So when you get into all that kind of research and studying, I think that sort of stuff comes out. So I think it could be.
The other thing I thought about, since you talked about Methodists, the other thing I thought about as we walk through this is, I wonder, on that big grid that covers the earth, I wonder what energy grid this was on.
Attuned to.
Yeah, attuned to, because again, it doesn't. The issue is, yeah, they may have had access to different types of material, things like that, but this is a pyramid type.
Sure.
Well, all of them were built on the same meridian throughout the world. All the the holy sites are built on the
So
same.
this notion of energy fields, energy points, whatever you call it in the earth, this is the idea of Findhorn in Scotland, although nobody's building pyramids. The idea that there are certain places in the earth where energy is less in a certain way. My reaction to steps is it's purposeful to require the effort. You're not walking up the steps at the top of a temple. You're climbing towards something. So you have to make an effort when you climb. And then maybe the more you're in tune spiritually with what all that's about, maybe it's a lot easier to go up. Right? For you and me, assimilated all that. But I would think it's purposeful to make an effort. I mean, that's the most obvious thing to me. So you're not just going up 6-inch stairs because, easier.
It's symbolic of a lot of things, but also the effort that's required. If you translate that to life, what does that mean? Then the other thought that I had as I thought about this is we talk about the energy grids and the meridians and things like that, but each one of us it's like they built this to transmit, connect with, and access and capture that energy. Well, more than that, each one of us individually are not a transmitter, a receiver, and a individually. And this was the symbol of it all over the world. Each has this symbol. But that's not it. But anyway, each one of us is that same symbol.
One of the things that I wonder about this, and I think about more directly my experience, because I don't know much about South and Central America, unfortunately, from living or working there, but in Asia, if you think of some of the earlier Buddhist and other interpretations. It's as if, a lot of these understandings are kept as a sort of secret traditional understanding. And maybe one of the differences is in that period, it might be just an easy conclusion to draw. This was the province of special people, priests, let's say. It's the idea of the priest and the flock, I guess. And the priest had access to certain esoteric understandings, but organized to protect that secrecy and that specialty, if you know what I mean. But if there's a difference between trying to connect it to what you said, between maybe then and now, there's no need for pyramids anymore, because the idea of that being an understanding that's kept, protected, secretive, only for a few is being exploded now, and it's available for any and all, so to speak, or more, right? So you wouldn't be building, it wouldn't make any sense to build a pyramid now, because everybody's going to be standing down below going, why can't I go up there, right? Something like that. Or have that understanding in yourself. It doesn't mean there's not a lot of foolishness and confusion, but the point is it's not the domain of an elite, what became, and you had the same in Judaism, right? Whether the Essenes or whoever who thought they were bigger, better, badder, and they were the keeper of the truths. So.
And in the different ages, there have been similar kinds of things, like Noah's Ark. Who builds an ark now? But it's what it means, what it symbolizes, it's what it stands for. These are the same kinds of things now. That the greater truth is that we each are the energy sources. We each do have masculine and feminine energy. We each are transmitters and receivers. And it's in understanding that, knowing that, being aware of that, and acting on that. And acting like we know that.
But even being that, and even when we realize that we are, there isn't anything we can do to change that, or to speed up the change that is taking place. And what reminds me of that is when the Mayan priests foretold the Spanish invasion in 1593, and they asked him what could they do to stop it, and he said nothing. But not only that, also the Native Americans, the Dakota priests saw a wagon wheel in a vision, and a wagon wheel in a vision, and he said that the wheel crushed everything in his pathway, and he saw that before the invaders began to move west, and he was asked what were they going to do to prepare to ward that off, and he told them there's absolutely nothing they could do. It's going to happen. So the end of the Mayans through the Spanish Inquisition, the whole concept of pre-reservation days ended. All those things were done for a greater purpose. And now the greater purpose for which they were done, I can speculate, but knowing it, I don't think anyone really truly knows. But again, looking at it from that perspective and seeing what's transpiring now, all we can do is be still and let things be as they are. We can't change it.
But the sense I get from this, and if I dangerously try to connect dots with other religions, look at, it was blasphemous in the Catholic Church to not say certain scripture in other than Latin. It was blasphemous in the Catholic Church and in the Shiite form of Islam for the individual to think to translate that scripture without an imam or a priest telling you what it meant, right? So you had, you had this sense that to protect the truth from the vulgar masses, using vulgar in the French, which just means mass of people, uneducated sort of common men, you had this purposefully or protectively or whatever, and then subject to any of the human frailties that come with creating a priest class to protect the truth, right? And you had this to reinforce the significance, the importance, etc. And if now the opportunity is for this to be available to all, sort of thing, you know, instead of being concentrated in a few to be protected, now it's more in the collective subconscious, in the ether, and available. The question becomes, what do you do? Right? And is it something that analogous to how the universe, Big Bang sort of thing? The Big Bang didn't happen once, right? They say it happened, it's happened an infinite number of times. So maybe that means that the truth is very concentrated. The truth is then exploded to be available for all. It's used, misused, some advance, some don't. And then sooner or later, that kind of falls apart, and we go back to starting over again. So the challenge for us is,
cyclic kind of
it could
message in what
be. It
you-
could be. If you look back, maybe and understand it, and maybe that's just collecting certain dots a certain way. But if you're at this point in time, we still seem to be part of an expanding universe, right? So an expanding availability of spiritual truth. The question is just, what do you do with that, and how does that affect you, etc. How that all turns out collectively, you know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't think that, I think that at one time, there was this priesthood developed in order to quote unquote protect truth. But I think that we've grown beyond that.
And we are each priest.
That
That's my point.
There's no protection anymore.
That's my point. It's so nobody's going to build a pyramid.
Nobody's going
You could build a cathedral, but nobody's going to. Okay, why'd you put that in the middle of town? We don't need a cathedral.
And I believe that that's one of the reasons you find that
Although we knew
people are not building holy places like they were once, like in terms of churches, etc. They're not doing that. It's not necessary to do that anymore, because the vessels of the energy is us, and the real, and it was intended to be like that from the beginning. But it seemed as though for some reason it was concentrated in the belief systems of a few, that they're the ones who hold the purity of truth. Wherein right now, I think it's all of us. And as far as what we do with it, we don't even if we thought what we were going to do with it, we still wouldn't know what we were doing, because we don't even know what it is. If you can't identify what it is, you don't know what to do with it.
Well, but I guess my point is, given that you're here now, living this life experience now, this is available for you to be changed by, to connect with, and whether it's cyclical or not, that's just an intellectual, academic question. That's not, maybe you can influence that or not, but the point is to do with what's been released and made available, right? And grow from it, be changed by it. So whether we ever return, the world ever returns to something like this, who knows? But if in fact the I don't know what kind of words to use, the ether, the atmosphere, the senses, this is now available to in you, then
Well, I don't think we'll ever return to this, because this is just physical. It has a spiritual, it's a physical representation of a spiritual truth, or truths. We've been talking about, I got churches on every corner. Just like we've been talking about just now, buildings. You can build a bigger, more beautiful building, and it may draw those people in who are think they're searching for something that's in that building, but very briefly, because people are now saying, and we've said it so much, this is not it. This is not all it is. And so the churches on every corner have idea has gone through its period. So I agree with that. So yeah, the issue is now that this is available to each one of us. The bigger question is. And I'm not saying you shouldn't congregate. That's not what I'm saying. But the bigger question is, what am I going to do individually with this? Yeah, to help me become more and more the the entity that I was created to be. Evelyn.
I think people have forgotten that God said He would no longer dwell in buildings, but in the hearts of men. So maybe again, like you were saying earlier, or everyone has been saying earlier, the buildings aren't necessary anymore. It's all, everything is us.
But I think it's, even if people, to use the analogy, if people are going now to the buildings, to church, and they're dissatisfied, right? So they leave. So you go to your next 15 churches until you decide this ain't gonna work, right?
Yeah.
But the question is, what are you filling that perceived gap with? If you know the church isn't, what then is? And I think to answer your question about why do we congregate, because we'll always congregate. The question is, what do you congregate to accomplish? We don't congregate the way you did at Beulah Baptist 20 years ago. There you went to a little bit of fellowship and then a lot of rote recitation of scripture, etc., etc. Now it's more like protons and neutrons bouncing off each other, right? Learning, changing, that kind of thing. But it's in one form of congregation or another, it seems to be, I don't know if I want to say necessary, but certainly useful and productive. The question is what you use with, how you use the congregation. We don't need to do it the same way. We don't expect the same outcome from it. It's more individual now, right? But you still want. Why do you come here? Because you still want to feed off of and be changed by what always isn't very clearly expressed and understood sort of interaction, but there's something in it. And then if you have time to go home and let it and assimilate it, something happens, right? So I think that's where we kind of are. So you have people like Nick would tell me at college, and kids running around, they don't want to go to church, but they don't know what to do. So you can get lost in that. Because in the old sort of more traditional way, at least I think in Christianity, but certainly in Buddhism, you need that mentor. You need that teacher to help give you structure and direction. Not to take you over, but right?
But I believe that we can influence what's going on. I believe that there are those who can channel energy. And for those folk who are running around and don't know what to do rightly, they know that there's more, but they don't know what the more is. Part of the energy channeling is putting it out there in the macro for them to whatever it is they need to help them see themselves. And so I believe for those of us who know more about who we are, not that we know all of who we are, but know more about who we are, to use what we have and what we do know to focus and to channel the energy in the macro
But,
for the benefit of mankind.
you know, when you talk about influence, it's impossible not to. Because if we are indeed energy, we influence each other, we are influencing. And that influence sometimes determines how it flows. On Tuesday I had an experience. I was talking with this guy who is in my Monday night class. His roots are in the Southern Baptist Church. And we've been having this discussion about what, hell being actually a creation of human nature as opposed to what we've been taught it is. And a couple of things he said to me. He had been saying that he wished he would love to quit his journey, but he just can't and doesn't understand why. So one of the things he said to me is that there were two motorcycle clubs who had come to him and asked him if he would teach them the scriptures, because they had heard some of the statements he made. And then, and that was as if that was not astonishing enough. He said that he was speaking with his wife, and it dawned on him what we have been talking about, hell. And he says to her, Suppose that I had come to you and told you that you're going to be my wife, and I do love you, but you're going to wash the clothes, you're going to cook, you're going to do all the things that a wife does, and if you don't, I'm going to beat you. What kind of love is that? So she says it's not. He said, okay then, so tell me then, if Brother James is wrong about hell, then why is it that God would say, you're going to be saved, you're going to do all the things I tell you to do, but if you don't, you go burn in hell? What kind of love is that? That is not love itself. And so the point of the matter is that he's beginning to understand that what's being taught is real, even though he cannot necessarily put it into words. So my point in saying all of that is this. It took some time, but the influences began to take root. And the flow, his flow is beginning to change from flowing from the perspective of bringing the Church of Southern Baptist roots into a flow that he has no control over, but at the same time he recognizes it and it resonates with him as being the right way to flow, regardless of his desires at one point not to even be involved with it. It's just something that if you have a desire, a genuine desire to be who you are, or to at least understand something about who you are, it is virtually impossible to have that desire and at the same time resist influence, resist the positive influence of truth. It's virtually impossible for that to happen.
Well, and the other thing that I heard you just so poignantly say is that the fire and brimstone perspective of the hardcore Southern Baptist is not something that resonates in him anymore. And so what he shares with whomever, starting with his wife, what he shares with whomever will be different from that original perspective. It will never be the same. And so that as you say, that's part of how we influence things. Because his world, whatever his world was, is going to touch the worlds of whomever, whether they're motorcyclists, whether they're other people in this congregation, whoever. But if my worldview, when my worldview changes, then what I say and do influences the worlds of those that I touch around me. And so, it, in fact, does have direct influence.
One of the things he said to me at the end was, the guys had said to him, well, maybe what we need to do is form our own church. And he said, that's the last thing you want to do. Because if you set up anything called church, you come under the influences of that. And it was kind of shocking for him to
You start creating rules
to
around
make that
that.
statement, you know.
It's another box.
Yeah, it's, you know, because what happens is, if you create something called church, then what happens is you begin to move in the direction of your identification of what church is supposed to be. And so, not only do you move into a box, but you're sticking the walls in the box so that nothing can come in or go out. So it was a very interesting conversation, to say the least.
But that takes me back to something I know we talked about here before, but I can't remember what we concluded. I mean, I can sort of imagine it, but in the beginning, so to speak, of the Christian gathering, what was the understanding? There weren't priests and certain ideas. There wasn't all that structure, right? And then slowly, for whatever reasons, and then eventually co-opted by the Catholic, Universal Catholic Church, right? Boom, now you have boxes with the boxes with the boxes stacked on top of each other. And as you said in here a long time ago, the real sin, if you had a sinner in the congregation and you had a minister, the minister is holding that person back from growing, the real sin is with him. Right? Because he should know better, to put it simply. So you have the same thing. So I was thinking here, we need hell, because you need a box to put all the confusion in. The problem is, you don't have to stay in hell.
Well, we do have hell, but we don't have it in the sense that we've been taught that hell is. You know,
Well, but we've been taught that once you get there, you can't get out, kind of thing.
That's right.
And it's maybe something, it's the wilderness, it's something you pass through. The question is, it might actually be a very constructive place to go if you learn from it and leave it.
And you do.
And you do learn from it. And it's a very...
Well, but if religion is telling you if you go there, that's it, you're
Right.
damned for eternity.
Right.
How do you get out of that?
Right.
Right? So what's the use?
but the point is, you gotta go here to be purified, so to have things clarified for you. Then it should almost be a line of people saying, can I go next?
So in reality, it's a question of whether or not you go through the hell and you get purification as you breathe, here in this dimension, or whether you have to go through the other dimension in order to get purified. But purified you will get.
Yeah.
One way or the other, it's
Sooner
gonna
or
happen.
later. Well,
Yeah, it's gonna happen. I mean, think about, when you think about the whole concept of She-Hulk with Abraham and Moses and all of them, when said that they walked the streets of Jerusalem at the resurrection. Why were they there?
You mean afterwards?
Yeah, prior to the advent of Jesus, why were they there? Why were they in this place called She-Hulk? Why were they in the lower parts of Europe? I mean, they had to be there for a reason.
Well, don't we go through for a reason? I mean.
Yeah, I'm saying, but we don't see them.
Oh, I got
as
you,
being
I got you.
We don't see them as being
Yeah.
in hell.
That's true.
Yeah. So we kind of sort of separate that out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I guess my point is that also that those things that inhibit, if the most fundamental understanding of life is movement, right? Two molecules move, vibration. So things that inhibit that, inhibit life. So it seems to be in our earthly understandings, we have a proclivity, tendency to create the boxes in which we put things because then we can conceptualize and explain them. But then we come a bit bound by that. And then if we have institutions created around that, they reinforce all that. So you build the pyramids. But then you start telling people, you can't come up here. You have to be special to come up here. And then you start creating that kind of structure that just reinforces somebody's, it inhibits somebody continuing to vibrate, to move, to expand, to grow, right? So if that's reversing now, and once again, the opportunity is there for people to be set free kind of thing, people are going to do that, use that in different ways if you want. Some will grow, connect, be changed, that will change the dynamic, but others will be like particles, I guess, bouncing off each other, confused.
I think
But that's the way of it.
whether it be the pyramids or the Mayan ruins or the Hopi ruins or
Catholic
whatever,
Church.
it doesn't matter. Whatever they are energy sites. And I don't believe that the energy was ever designed to be captured or to be in one place or along the grid. I believe that the pyramids were built in order to create an influential society that's a step above everyone else, when it was never meant to be that way. However, since it was that way, it served to give us pause so that we could wonder, how did they do this? How did you channel this energy? What is the purpose of it? It caused us to actually look in the mirror and begin to explore who we are, what our purpose will be. So having said that, I believe that we're at a point now where the cataclysmic event is about to take place, not necessarily in this physical realm, but in the other realm, and that is the walls of pyramids and other ruins will not be strong enough to hold the energy forces that are there now. And the channeling of energy will no longer be channeling as we think channeling is. If I can channel energy, then that means that I can direct it, and if you can't, that means you don't know you can. But I believe that the energy flows be more in tune with for lack of a better term, positive or progressive desires of mankind to be more in tune with who we were created to be from the beginning.
I got a question. Why is it that she was sent to go to where she been, those places, her energy was taken there. Janice is to where she had gone, and I guess there are other people who have gone that you're covering, and they're going in other places. Why is that? Why is that happening now?
But Richard, they've been out there also,
Yeah.
all these places they've gone as well.
I think when you look at Janice and look at Muhammad, you look at two extremes. You look at Janice being there with Catholicism, seeking to capture and control, manipulate everything that is, as versus the Mayans are saying, these Catholics gonna come and get us, because that's basically what happened.
Well, what would Richard be then? Would it be where it's a different type of?
It's a sense of absorbing energy from around the earth.
I can tell you probably one reason why I think I sought this, and it's got a lot of frustrations with it. It ain't nothing simple. Well, I'm not working right now. Okay, anyway, probably I think because first of all, I grew up a little bit that way, so I had an idea of what was possible.
Okay.
And I sometimes think I just took an easier way. There's nothing noble about it. I went back to what I knew from before because I was frustrated with what I was seeing around me. I tried to be an American in the 70s, to say it simply. I got out of the Army and I didn't know what to do, like most people when they get out of the Army. And then I tried this, tried that, tried other people's ideas of what I should do. I didn't like it. So I sort of tried to find my way back to this. It took some effort. But I also felt, and it's not fair to anybody I say this to, if I stayed here in the United States, it was going to be much harder to be more what I wanted to be without necessarily knowing what all that was. When you go to another culture, people are more like, who are you, where are you from, what do you think? When you're an American, it's like, what do you do for a living? And okay, I know you. And then you go on and meet somebody else. We don't care about each other very much. We stratify each other very quickly. And then I didn't want to be, we're a very conforming society. And I didn't trust myself in that. There's nothing brave about it. I was scared that if I stayed here, I would have been Mitt Romney.
That's definitely fear.
Well, yeah.
I mean, that's an extreme way to say it.
Yeah,
Well, that makes sense.
yeah, it does.
Including the Mormonism.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have been Mormon, but I probably would have been practicing my religion the same way he appreciates. I'm sorry, it's not a real, no, it's a religion. I don't know that it's a faith, but it's a religion. Okay? But anyway, right? So I just unsubconsciously said, I gotta get out of here. But I gotta get out of here to know how to come back, too. It's like some of the authors I've read. Nicholas Kazantzakis, Sword with the Greek. He was excommunicated from the Catholic Church because he asked too many questions. He wrote The Last Temptation of Christ. That got him kicked out of the Eastern Orthodox Church. Why? Because he had to ask those questions. Right? So he sort of had to become non-Christian to then find his way back into Christianity. And I think that's one of the attractions of Foundation for me. You're looking at Scripture another way. You're trying to go to the root of it, not just skimming along the surface. So I had the opportunity, that's all. And then I wasn't going to let it go.
And that's pretty much,
You can do that in your backyard. You know.
that's pretty much the, leaving Christianity to come back to find out what it really is. The pre-Constantine Christianity, because Christianity has absolutely nothing to do with the concepts of discipline that we have been given. But it does have everything to do with life itself. But what am I saying? It has nothing to do with this physical thing called baptism, the communion, to join in the church. I'm a member of this and a member of that. It has absolutely nothing to do with those things at all. Nothing at all. But it has more to do with an acceptance of who we were created to be. And all of that was lost, I believe, during the period of post-Constantine Christianity. During that period, all of that had been lost, but not lost completely, lost to us. Because even though the confusion came out of it, the Vatican still has hold of all that stuff. You know, the scrolls that's supposed to be lost, the artifacts that's supposed to be lost, the understandings that were written down that's supposed to be lost. All that stuff is there, and it is an effort to control. So how do you end that? By taking control of yourself.
Yeah, it starts.
By determining that you're not going to be manipulated, molded, or whatever from the outside. And I firmly believe that the way you do that is by questioning everything. Everything. If you don't question everything, you understand nothing.
Wow.
Well, I also feel that because of the places where you were, the place of the Mayas, the place of the Vatican, think you both were gathering energy
Yeah.
for our use on December 28th and 21st.
And you've been to the Vatican too. I mean, I don't want to get off this subject a little bit, but I want to put something else in this pot that we're stirring. One of the other things that struck me as we went around is people in other countries like Belize, Cozumel. And this was the time of the elections, remember. I think we were in Belize on the 2nd. We were in Cozumel the day before. And here you got these people from these countries who are saying, very much so, in the face of everybody on whatever tour, who are you voting for? Are you, they knew about the politics and whatever that was going on, but for a different reason. And of course, all of them that we talked to were Obama fans for whatever their reasons were. But there was one woman when we got to Antigua, one of the Marquettes at the Nelson Stockyard, and we just started talking to her because my son's mother-in-law is in Antigua, so she knows people from all over the island. And she introduced us, and then she walked off, and I started talking to this woman. And instead of trying to sell me something, because that's usually, she said, it's very bad here. It's very bad for some of us. She said, they asked me about Sandy, the hurricane. She says the ships and the people that we expected to come in, who were good for their trade, haven't come in. And the thing that was most poignant that she said to me was, when America hurts, we hurt. Now, she was simply voicing something that reminds us of the fact that we all influence and are connected to each other for different reasons. But she says, when America hurts, we hurt. And her point was economically, but I think on a deeper level, it's a spiritual kind of thing too. Whatever happens to each of us does affect everybody else. When America hurts, we hurt. So that I just left with that. It just resonated with me.
I think that's an important, it's much deeper than we think it is. And it's a greater point in that when America hurts, the world hurts. And I believe it's not by coincidence or accident that happens. The center of everything that's good or evil is right here. And I believe that the so-called melting pot thing was not something that came into being because some people decided that they were going to leave England and then go to Africa and get some slaves. I believe that every bit of it was orchestrated for such a time as this, so that these energy forces could be brought together in one place, and that you see one extreme represented by economics, and another extreme represented by a genuine desire for truth. And both of these are energy forces that are seeking to divorce from each other. And the forces are put them against each other. And I believe that up until this point, the forces of economics have ruled, period. And now we're at a point where truth is beginning to surface as the more vital force for the sustaining of life than is the sense of economics. Because economics doesn't seek to sustain life, it seeks to milk life for everything we can get out of it, as opposed to sustain it. I mean, and every time I think about economics, I think about the manifest destiny. Everything is about greed. Everything is about squeezing the the life out of everyone that you can look at the idea of Walmart. The reason Walmart prices are low because their employees are not paid anything. So it's all about greed and as opposed to everyone being a part of the cycle that sustains life itself. So it's America is here for a reason, and the reason is that it is the central point for this next cataclysmic experience that we're about to have.
But I really wish, I've had this conversation with that woman for 40 years. I mean, I'm
That woman.
making an analogy to what you're saying. I've had people in my face and had this conversation since I first met somebody who spoke with an accent and tried to understand who they were and where they came from. And I almost literally cry sometimes when I think that we've let ourselves become so superficial and so internally focused and egocentric. We've lost the sense of that. And then you have someone like Bush perverting that by saying they hate us for our freedoms. No, they don't. They hate you for interfering with their right to have their freedoms. But the point is, I just don't think we teach ourselves, we give ourselves the opportunity, I'm sorry, this is just on that level, to understand that we are a big influence on other people know more about this country than we do because they live with the impact of our policies. So they have, one way or another, they have to know what they are. And yet they still want to wear jeans and eat hamburgers and stuff. So it's a love-hate thing, right? And I think Americans are confused by that because we don't try to understand it. And unfortunately, you don't have a lot working around you that's trying to help you understand it. You have to find those sources and then listen when the opportunity is there. But
Well, I
you
mean,
can put that on a spiritual or a material level.
well, we don't have to understand because we're American. It's what we want it to be. Whatever we choose for it to be, that's what it is because we're American. I mean, that's what we're taught. And you're right. We are egocentric in that regard. Whatever we desire, we're supposed to have, and we see ourselves as being superior to everybody else in the world. And when if you really look at it, on a more realistic scale, we are actually worse off than anybody else in the world, and trying to convince ourselves that we're not. We really are, because we have no clue as to who we are, and we are the most ignorant people on the face of the earth when it comes to economic and political policy as it pertains to this country. We really are. But we've convinced ourselves that because we think we're right, we are.
So we live in a lie.
We live in a lie, and that lie has to be exposed.
But I think up until this period, I'm sorry, it was more
Finish that
comfortable.
comment, Benjamin.
I think up until recently, till this decade, we could live that lie with a certain comfort, right? And so you had O'Reilly saying the traditional American is gone. Talk about really living the lie. You know, back to Leave It to Beaver, please.
Yeah.
Anyway,
That wasn't ever a truth.
no, but that was, he's putting that out as that was the American dream. You know,
It
we're all
was.
sort of semi-robotic, like, hi, you know. I mean, that worked until I met the first person who spoke to me with an accent. That meant I didn't even know who you people were, excuse me, until I was 16.
Really?
I lived outside the South. I lived outside the United States. I heard things. I helped. Well, never mind. But I mean, I understood some things that were going on, but I didn't interact.
Okay.
You know. And then once it's like Vietnam. I lived in Vietnam, and I thought the war was the right thing to do. Then I came to the United States, and I went, whoa, right? So it's all that. That's why if you get out into life and try to stick your fingers in it, the goo of life, you learn. You can learn. You can learn. You can learn. My mother taught me one thing, and she, you don't ever have to be changed by the opportunities that are presented to you. You can walk right by them, and you can go, no, whatever, and actually be hardened if you want to be that insecure. So the opportunity, I think, is reemerged.
I'm sure it's been there before. The question is, and I think we've said that in here, it's a window that will open in December. The question is, what do you do with it?
Right.
Something's gonna descend from the sky and it's gonna be, Armageddon. But that'd be too easy, because then everybody'd be on their knees or whatever. This is gonna be so subtle.
We'll be on our knees to get us through this period of when the window closes, and then we'll be done everything. There would be no true change. Denise?
No, it's two things I've been thinking about. One, I think I finally understand some of the pressure I felt while I was in Italy. I think normally my personality anyway is to try and make people comfortable and to make them at ease, and I felt that more intensely over there because it seemed like, no, it didn't seem, I felt the weight of kind of American arrogance and, how, I don't know if you call it how other tourists treat people, but it's just this sense that I wanted to be different so badly. Like I wanted to show that there's like just another. I didn't want to be like the ignorant tourist American that's like wandering around with bad manners and mistreating people and completely ignoring the fact that you're a guest in someone else's home. And I just hearing that, hearing what you all were saying really kind of brought that home as to why I felt that so strongly. I didn't want to make any mistakes. I mean, it was kind of ridiculous. But yeah, the second thing was I was really struck by the beggars in Italy and along the path to the Vatican, and just how completely abject they were. I mean, afflicted, laying on the ground, old mothers, like, that I wanted to just pick up and like take with me somewhere to feed and clothe. I couldn't even, I felt like a monster just walking past them, and I had no idea what to do with those feelings. And I did give to one woman because I actually felt it strong enough, like to cut through all of the confusion of do I give or do I not give, and how do I feel about this? What kind of person am I to walk by these people who are in such pain? But I'm also thinking about, they probably have, if you'll excuse the expression, a pimp somewhere who's put them out here to get this money. And I did some reading when I got home, and there is like an organized crime ring that puts beggars out on the streets and rounds them up at the end of the day. And in some cases, these people are maimed on purpose to make them more sympathetic. And giving money actually contributes to that cycle. And I'm like, how on earth, like, what do you do with something like that? It is like a perfect trap. Like, how do you, what do you do? And I feel like walking away and saying, I deal with it spiritually, in the moment it doesn't feel like enough, and I did break down and start crying at one point. Des is looking at me, she's like, girl.
That's what I was going to ask you, did you cry or scream?
I did cry, like, I don't know, the first couple of them I was like, okay, and then like I passed one guy and I was done, and I still don't really have an answer.
And beyond that is the fact that there are those who are truly out there,
Yes.
not a part of, who don't want to, even if they were a part of an organized kind of thing, who didn't
They
want
are
to be.
victims.
And they are at the feet of the Vatican, which has the riches of the world. I mean, that contrast.
Yes.
Read Shoes of the Fisherman, it's right there. Everybody should read The Ugly American, and Shoes of the Fisherman. Sorry, that's it. But I can tell you, after 50 years, there is no answer. There's no answer. You just do
Let's talk
what
about
you
yourselves.
feel to do.
You do what you feel. I mean,
Because you can't understand, you don't know, so you do what you feel. And I had a friend who I started doing what she did. I said the same question to her. She's Ghanaian in Africa. What do you do? And she said, Richard, I cash the equivalent of like $5 every day into small change.
Yes.
And my preference is women and women with babies. And I give them money. I don't care if they turn around and give it to a guy or whatever. If I feel I should, I give it to them. When I'm out of money, I stop giving it. I can't make those decisions, but I want to do something.
I made that decision, like, I'm not going back without cash again. I won't walk around without money, because I can't.
Well, I'm tempted to ask you too, were most of these people North African?
No, I would probably say they were Eastern European, but I couldn't tell you where
Okay.
from.
That's the,
And
that's the new North
yeah,
Africa.
that's, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that,
They weren't Italian though.
No,
See-
well, I don't think, some of them may have been, but.
Yeah, they might have been gypsy.
and there was nothing you can do about that. You know, so what do? You do what you did, you know?
Yeah.
The other thing is that you probably still don't have an answer for the reason that you felt what you felt. And even if you did have an answer, then what you do with that? See, I think that the experiences are there so that you can have a sense of the energy that's felt, you know, around the world. Whether it be somebody who's really destitute or somebody who's pretending to be destitute, it doesn't matter. It's almost like the stir of the wheat and the tare. You know, you don't separate the wheat from the tare. You allow truth to do that. When we were speaking earlier about having this window of opportunity, I think that in our lifetime we've had, this is the second window of opportunity that we've had. The first one we turned out to be political in nature, and it did not serve the purposes for which it was supposed to have served. Now it is a spiritual opportunity that we have to rectify some wrongs, not by us doing anything, because we don't know what to do other than accepting what's presented, and when it does indeed resonate with us. I don't believe that any of us, or for lack of a better term, qualified to decide what should happen, or how it should happen, or what it should look like when it does happen. But we are in a position, or have been positioned, I should say. We have been positioned to be conduits through which the energy flows. And it's the purity of desire that allows it to flow not just to you, but away from you, in such a manner that will be beneficial to mankind itself, as opposed to perpetuate the system that still exists.
But Denise, I think the fact that you let it touch you is already a change. It's enough. That's it. If it happens again, that'll be 2 points of touch that'll, you know, what's it, exponentially, little subtle things. The fact that you let yourself feel empathy or some compassion. I think there's just too many people that are too exhausted, too tired, too busy, too self-interested, too much Black Friday. I saw a picture of a woman running out of some store with 4 50-inch TVs or something. Like, what, do you put them in your bathroom? Obviously she was going to sell them or something, but I thought, you know, and to me the conspiracy is to make your life like that so you have no moment of quiet.
Right.
To think. You don't even need to go to Italy. It's right there in front of you on the TV all the time. You can see it on the internet. All the difficulties, the challenges. Sandy didn't just hit New York. It hit Haiti, Cuba. It bounced its way up the coast.
Right.
And everybody said, oh yeah, but it always hits Haiti. Well, actually it didn't hit Haiti very hard. And even in Port-au-Prince where I was, it didn't hit Port-au-Prince. It's always out on the peninsula. Out in the, anyway, the town out of the end. They got just wiped out again. But it smacked its way through Jamaica and Cuba, and then it bounced and, okay, maybe it needed to hit the New York area
It did.
because those folks up there make a lot of decisions for the rest of the country, not in New Orleans, right? If it hits New Orleans, it's a bunch of poor folk. But if you hit New York, that's a slap in the back of the head, right? So we'll see.
It's a wake-up call.
We'll see.
So, and then again, Janice, the other part of that is probably you left more than you got in terms of the empathy. You know, there are deposits made no matter where we go. There's a residue of your presence regardless of where you go, and that the thoughts, the feelings that you had left that residue there.
Well, you change somebody's view of what an American is like. Trust me,
And
and that's a good thing.
even if even on a larger scale than changing the view from what America's like, it's influencing the spiritual energy in the place that's available in a way that it would be seen differently than what it has been. It would not surprise me in the least bit if there were not in the coming days and weeks exposures of things that have been hidden for years in the Vatican. It would not surprise me at all if the doors that have locked away the secret since the Constantine period will not be flung open for people to really see what they're dealing with. That would not surprise me in the least bit.
You know, it's interesting. I felt like walking through there, I expected to feel evil because that's the seat of all of everything, right? But I didn't feel like once while I was there. And if anything, I felt a sense of sacredness that had nothing to do with Catholicism at all. I don't really know how to explain it. And I don't know if it was because it was the truth that's hidden away there, you know, and that sense of respect for what's locked away. I don't know, but I felt light and joyful the entire time I was there.
I don't doubt that in the least bit. And the reason is because now you went there with a knowledge and understanding of what's there, what it's supposed to represent, but also what's locked away, what's kept from the face of mankind. So having gone with that, then the greatest sense for darkness is light. So to feel that sacredness is to be emitting light in a dark place.
I can see that.
So putting a lot of what we talked about in perspective. Girl, you bad.
In one sense.
She's mad. She can go back.
You know, we talked about our experiences with different people and different culture, but I think part of the reason for that is to remind us of what Foundation is about. The fact that we can't be thinking about and ourselves only, or this country only, but mankind in general and mankind everywhere. It just reaffirms, I think, what we've been saying. The fact that what we do and what we say impacts so many more beings than just America and just us here. So it's a daunting thing to think about, but we're up to that challenge. We've been built that way. We've been made that way to be that way. We just have to know that and know that we know that.
Maybe your trip was preparation for the facilitation that you would go to.
Perhaps. I'm sure there will be some things we can take from that. But I think that our experiences, our varied experiences, will be, and the teachings will be the important thing.
Yeah.
The trips just remind you that you're not in isolation, and you're not alone, and things like that.
I think it's important that there are major energy points that are under discussion now. I mean, no one is talking about the Hocus, no one's talking about the Egyptians, everybody's talking about the Mayans. You know, and it's all in relationship to what Catholicism has put forth as Christianity. So I think that in itself is extremely significant.
And as a reminder,
And that females did it.
and if Jamel was here, he would remind us that we are in the age of Aquarius,
Yeah.
when a lot of these things would begin to be revealed anyway. And there has been a lot. If we think about what's happened in the last year to 2 years, there's been a lot that's happened. Not only here but worldwide, but it's finally come to America from seemingly out of nowhere you had Sandy. Everybody, when they were talking about it, oh, it's gonna take the predictive model, and well, hey, predictive model didn't work this time, and it's almost like a backhand slap to the head to the country that you are not. Why are y'all laughing?
Richard said the same thing.
No, I said slap on the back of the head, not a
you
backhand
did?
slap.
You did.
She just changed the words.
Okay.
Same
You said the same
Well,
thing.
I heard you when you said that, but
I'm
I
just
just
playing
didn't know
my-
I heard you when you said it. Anyway, well, it's that look upside the head that you are not immune to anything that happens to anybody else.
Right.
So, yeah, that like that.
Even the,
That's why the back of my head is
yeah, I
flat
was
and the
listening,
front
I
of
was
my
listening to,
head. I do it to
this guy was
myself.
talking about, some of the quatrains of,
Should've, could've had all of it, right?
and one,
Oh, that's the one thing I forgot. One of the codexes was found in one of these ruins. It wasn't here, but they found the codex when they found the priest. But anyway.
one of the quatrains that said that, 2012 would be a year of drought, in this country. So, I guess what I'm saying is that we've been warned, you know, time and time again, but we are so modern, we're so intelligent, and we're so ahead of the curve until nothing moves us, because we have control of this thing. And to watch the people who are in preparations of, you know, of what they say is this apocalyptic view of things, building these huge underground tubes to live in.
Yeah, I saw that.
I mean, that's
Oh, I
utterly
didn't really-
ridiculous.
Oh, man.
I didn't want to watch that.
Doomsday.
Yeah, yeah,
Preppers.
that kind of thing is utterly
I
ridiculous.
gotta watch that.
Yeah.
You know, the first thing that came to my mind was this. Okay, so you do that, right? And you have this little metal lid that closes your little capsule, and you're under the ground. Now you got 30 feet of ash on top of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
How you get out of that?
I mean, you know, that's utterly ridiculous.
And it's about protecting me and mine.
Yeah.
Again, that whole idea and the whole concept.
And it's all about the cheddar anyway,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, there was a woman that was interviewed by Bill Moyers a while back, and she made a comment that I thought was so obvious and profound, that she said, when I think about being a consumer or whatnot, I find myself thinking very much about myself. When I think about being, I think she said, a citizen, I tend more naturally to think about community. And I think it's us and them. And we've been told, which has been the blessing and the curse of so many cultures, it's us versus them. And so it's get what you can, protect yourself from them, whoever they are, and somebody's going to tell you who they are and how they're a threat to you. And you either buy into that, physically, spiritually, or you don't. Or you find some way to be confused and find your way out of that. And I think that's what we have the chance to do now. A lot of that stuff just doesn't float anymore, doesn't work, and the question is that we sort of change that, or we allow somebody to restructure that and impose it back on us.
Anything else?
The only thing about Sandy was, it did what the models predicted. But people took forever to actually let the model be.
Right, but, yeah, but.
It
you
did
know,
what the model.
Yeah, but initially, early on, whether they preemptively did not let it work itself through. They were saying, oh, it's way out here in Atlanta, and we expect it to go.
Well, as I understood it, okay, detail, but the American models predicted it would go back to the Atlantic. The
Yeah.
European
Yeah,
models
yeah,
said no.
Yeah.
But when they merged the two, it was heading for New York.
Yeah. Yeah, but it was the American model that was the truer model, Richard,
Voila.
remember?
Until.
We're always right. Because we're always right.
Yeah. It even that cynical.
What's that joke? I made one mistake and I thought I was wrong once or something like that. Yeah, it's the same kind of thing.
Anything else?
Professor Sumter has been quiet. You don't have anything in yet?
I've been just taking it all in and more so, I don't know how to conceptualize it, but I guess working it through other means than just communicating verbally.
In other words,
What are you saying?
more on that later.
Okay, is that what you're saying?
You do it next week. Nick's supposed to start, and we'll be here till we leave.
We're doing what next week? Still in Genesis?
He's going to deal with energy.
Nick had started last week using a cone from the unity, it's right there.
Okay.
From the unity to the beginning to the separation. To then, he did that for an hour and a half, and it said, you know, the idea was to then have part two of that, which would go until it finished.
Oh, okay.
I think that's right. That's what you're saying, right? Yeah. We just had a break because
Thank you.
he went to Chicago and blah, blah, blah.
And you interpret the blah, blah, blah.
We have that, interpret that too. Okay. That's it. This has put me on the spot. We're done.
Okay.
December 3rd?
Yeah.
Has everybody
I'll
made?
get with that if you know.
Okay.
Okay.
Plenty of time.
Okay.
The truth of the light and the light of the truth that is in us, that surrounds us, that's above us and beyond all. Yet, we are it, and it is us. Reminds us that we are one.
All right.
Are we meeting a long time, with a long session next weekend?